Today on Creative Set Plays, we're excited to be joined by Michele Aragona. Michele most recently served as the first team set play analyst at FC Midtjylland, a club renowned for its innovative and data-driven approach to set pieces. Before his time in Denmark, Michele worked as a first team analyst at Sampdoria under the legendary Andrea Pirlo. In today's session, Michele will draw on his wealth of experience to break down Liverpool's set play strategy during their title-winning season under new manager Arne Slot, where he'll also compare this approach to previous seasons under Jurgen Klopp. So, welcome, Michele.
Hi, Billy. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and to share something with the Creative Set Plays community that is so important for me because, as you know, I always like to take inspiration from the other guys posting on the page. So let's dive into the presentation. It was important for me to talk about um, Liverpool as a whole because we as analysts we need to start some conversations around the best teams, why are they the best, where they can still improve in certain areas because of course no one is perfect, fortunately, because otherwise it would be a problem. And at the same time, the lower tier clubs in a certain league, why are they there? What is happening? If they can improve in a lot of places or in just one critical zone or area of the club. So I really like to do this kind of investigation. This time it was Liverpool, and so they won the league. Lots of praise to them. Insanely good open play, in my opinion, of course, and really, really good defensive set plays. And this is like the matter of the video. We will go through the offensive part of set plays because, of course, they got challenged a lot in the offensive part with a new group of people, like even Slot said during some recent interviews, praising this new group of people started to work on set pieces, and they did a fairly good run. But let's dive into some numbers. So this is the set piece league, something that I really like to see usually on every league. Is just an easy way of understanding where are we starting from. On the bottom you will see the set piece goal plus minus, and then on the right, on the left, just the number of clubs in the same plus minus. So at the moment you will see this was made probably 2 match days ago. So after 35 games, you have Brentford at the top in this special leaderboard and Southampton at the bottom. Of course, if you can think a bit about the state of the league, it's normal to see Brentford in such a place, even if as Liverpool, offensive wise, they got challenged a lot and it was not easy through the season. Again, they started to work with a new group of people, and through the season, they managed to get more and more consistency, and now they are there with clubs like Aston Villa, Forest, and Palace that did so well this season. Liverpool, that is the main team of the analysis, is sitting on a -1. But this is just a wider view. Then it's important to go deeper and deeper into the action. So if we want to take a look quickly at the set piece data, this is more general data, a little more in depth than the set piece league. This is like the structure of the video, so coming from a wider view and then going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, because I don't like to leave things by chance, so it's important to see everything. Like you can see there the main set piece stats that everyone knows. So the goals against, and then you can see the differences. Green is above average, red is under the average. So just to let you know what we're looking at. And so if you look at Liverpool, they they were a little bit low on the set piece goals scored offensively. Against, they conceded few goals, but of course it was a bit unfortunate because the set piece XG against was insanely low. If I'm honest, it's probably the lowest in the whole league, so props to them. Of course, then we will talk about later on the key players that led them to having such a low XG against them, such Van Dijk and Konate, for example. And then the shots against, and then the plus minus of the shots was really good. And then at the end is something that I like to put sometimes to have a quick view on the best teams and the worst team in the league according to this piece of data. So every single red block means 1 point. Every single, green block is 1 point. Red block is 0 points. So super easy, nothing fancy. But then at the end you will have like a quick view. Even if some teams you say like, for example, Liverpool, that seems like so low on the table. But then if you see, okay, low goals, the plus minus is not quite there. The XG is not so high, the one created, but then the other data are good. So we can consider them, of course, a good team in the league. And this is something that I wanted to see, where are they coming from? That is so important, especially when I start analyzing a team, even if it is like an opponent during the season, etc. It's important to see where are they coming from. For this analysis, I took stats from the 2021 season and so on. So they were kind of always a top contender in offensive set plays, XG per 90. In 22-24, they were perfectly in line with the top three average, as you can see in blue. Now, of course, like I said, they got challenged a lot, new group of people, things needed to get sorted. They are now sitting a little bit towards the worst three average. And while I say worst three and top three, is top three and worst three in set pieces, not the normal leaderboard. And then, of course, for a team like Liverpool, it's important to have on the chart the top one too, because it's super important to have like a clear goal, because I think that will be the ultimate goal of certain teams, because it's normal to prevail and be the best in every single area. So, okay, so the same of everything you are seeing there, it will apply defensive wise. In general, like I mentioned before, Liverpool defensive wise was always among the best, apart from the 23-24 season that got challenged a bit more. But in general, as you can see, the red line, it's always among the top three best average, or even closer to the top one in, for example, the 21-22 season, where they did an incredible run. Today, like I said, even with a new group of people, they are doing incredibly well defensive wise. After 35 games, they were tied with the top one spot. So that's super important. Really props to them. And that's why the main focus of the analysis will be offensive wise.
Great. So just in summary, Michele, on that data you've just presented there in terms of an overview of how they're doing both in terms of attacking and defending set plays, is it fair to say that purely just looking at the data and not adding any context to it, that in terms of attacking set plays, they've shown a drop off this season, but from a defensive point of view, they've actually improved their data in terms of how they defend set plays?
Yeah, if you look at the data like they are, yes, absolutely. They had a little bit of a drop off offensive wise. defensive-wise, like I said, the status of Liverpool is always really high. But if we consider last season and this season, of course, there's major improvements. So that's super important. And yeah, again, of course, props to them. So diving more into what happened, the set piece XG through the whole season, you can see is not linear. Something happened for sure, and we will dive more into that later. Started so well, then we will see with a lot of in-swingers, 6-yard box packing, and then they started to move a bit away from the 6-yard box, more outswing, different ideas, different targets, but this is normal in a place where you are developing an area. Of course, it will be ideal to always stick with certain plans, certain principles, and then just add a little bit details. But if something is not working, of course, there can be the need of changing drastically. So of course there was some talks around Liverpool through the season. The set piece XG is lower after the first part and for the majority of the season. But then we look at the corner XG, of course, is kind of similar because, of course, is the thing that majorly impact the set piece XG due to the amount of corner they have, and they don't use long throws. So their set piece XG is all about corners and different side free kicks and central free kicks, etc. We go deeper and deeper and we say, okay, they had such a dip in the XG. Is it related to the number of actual set pieces? So, for example, we look at the differences between corner XG and actual corners, and you cannot clearly see the correlation, probably in the first part, just a bit, but then, the corners went skyrocket again, and then they had a dip again. In general, you see this kind of data, and you will think like, okay, the XG is lower because the corner were a bit lower in different parts of the season, but 6/7 corners per game, it's still a really good number. I think everyone wishes to have them every game. So if we compare the number of corners they had with the other teams in the league, they are top two, uh, incredible high numbers. So that's why I'm saying the numbers of set pieces were high is not correlated to the low XG created by on set pieces. If we dive more into, for example, the set piece shot distance, like I mentioned before, they started with looking more towards the in-swing 6-yard packing, overload with a lot of players. So the shots coming from this kind of situation were closer to the goal. Then they started to go more towards outside the 6-yard box, outswing, and you can see for quite a big period that is around 2 months and a half, they started to have shots from far distances, 14, 15 meters. And then they changed again around November, December, January. They started to have more in-swinger 6-yard box again. And then they are finishing with a mix of both. So trying to take the strength of both situations and mixing them together. Because as we all know, players like Van Dijk are super good in attacking set pieces from an outswing. It's something that he showed through his whole career, not even only recently. And may struggle a bit more with the in-swing because it's not probably their cup of tea. It's something different for them. Of course, everything is different, so you need to add a lot of training time. You need to add a lot of individual analysis. So it's something is not immediate, and can result into differences that can lead you to reach a certain goal in what you want to do in set pieces in such a long time, not in a short time. So if you want to go have a different view of kind of what we see before, set piece XG are conceded Liverpool to give you an understanding on the league comparison. Arsenal, of course, is top. Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, all these kind of teams that are all over the place for set pieces because they are doing so well with some common traits. And if we talk about Liverpool, the common traits that you see in the top clubs in set pieces are not there yet. Of course, there can be possibilities to improve or not, but this is the state they are right now. XG considered, like I said, probably tied with Man City. So really good, really good. I cannot say more about that. When we talk about different competition, Champions League again in XG considered and XG scored. Liverpool is among the best again in XG conceded. You can see there Arsenal, City, Liverpool for if you talk about the English clubs. And when we go through the offensive ones, still they are a bit over the average, but they have plenty of teams over them, such as again City. You can see Bayern Munich, Barcelona, even Borussia Dortmund, where they have a really good set piece coach. And for my own country, you have few teams, so they did quite well. For the state of Liverpool as a team, of course, you would like to see them competing for the top spots offensive-wise in the Champions League. And this is probably a little bit that can lead you to go through certain stages of the competition. Diving more into the corners data in particular and video, this is kind of the same slide as before, but in this slide we dive more in depth into the situation. So we will have XG per corner and XGA per corner. That is super important because it's probably in my opinion, the best indicator on what is happening on corners. Because of course, like we said, when we talk about the set piece XG per 90, you can have plenty of set pieces and have an incredible bump in the data, or you can have almost no set pieces because you are a bottom of the league team and have incredibly low data. So it's important to dive more into it. When we talk about corners, XG per corner, XG per corner conceded, it's super important to take note of that. And Liverpool in this case is below average in the offensive ones because, like we said, they had an insane amount of corners, but the danger was not quite there. Defensive wise, almost is strange because almost everyone in the league is right on the average or a little bit higher, like Liverpool. So again, they are the best in this regard too. 0.02 XGA considered per corner is incredibly good. Of course, in corner, the situation in goals and goals against were really good. Seven scored, 3 against, so props to them. And to have a different view of the corners in comparison to the league, we have this different visualization where you can see Liverpool with such a low XG conceded, but at the same time below the average for set piece XG created, where you have teams like Aston Villa and Arsenal shining in the league and Southampton, Ipswich and Leicester having some difficulties, getting challenged a lot. Same as the Champions League, of course, you have more teams for the new format. You have Monaco, Atalanta, Benfica, Stay Brest that did so well in set pieces, and Liverpool is like just on the average for the XG offensive wise, and defensive wise they are incredibly good again. Diving more into it again for the offensive corners, I usually like to differ them from left to right. Two different visualizations, one for just the contacts and one for the XG created, other than the contacts and the shots. So you have on the left the number of contacts that from the left corner that is supposedly more in swing, like we said before. The contacts are in the front area of the 6-yard box, and then they started to move it a bit through the season to some location near the 6-yard box, but not quite in. And then for the shots, you can see these kind of touches they had in the front part of the 6-yard box were not kind of correlated with the amount of shots they had. Because of course with the amount of corners they took, the number of shots is not quite high, especially in the 6-yard box. They only have 8 shots in the 6-yard box. Of course, the outcome was different with just one goal. And then if you move it forward out of the 6-yard box, they had more shots. So it's something, of course, to take into consideration when you see the state of your set pieces and you think, okay, what is happening? Is my idea working? Is my idea not working? And then, of course, it's important to know that we have all this kind of data, but then if you ask Liverpool directly, they may have different data. This is something that happened in Midtjylland too, where, for example, StatsBomb, we were second in the world for set piece XG per 90 created, but for our in-house data that I was collecting and then I was sharing with the data analyst, we were top of the world. Like we, instead of 0.43, around 0.43 XG per 90 offensively, we had 0.60. But at the same time, I cannot say that because maybe if I talk with Liverpool set piece analyst, no, I don't. They don't have one. Data analyst or analyst that is covering a bit of set pieces, they would say like, oh no, but we have 0.75. So it's always important to understand that and to have two type of charts and leaderboards, one with your in-house data and one with the data you find on providers. And of course, it's important to always stick with the same provider. Otherwise, you have major differences. And yeah, so this is left side. Again, left side for the Champions League, but we don't have a lot of situation to talk about. So not many shots, not many corners. So it's just a quick overview. And this is like kind of video analysis on what happened. So as you can see, I always like to break down what is happening first, trying to understand the ideas and behind the corner and the main functions and roles of the players. Of course, for the sake of this presentation, is not incredibly in depth, but it's just to give everyone the feeling on what is happening. So they have, of course, Salah as a second post runner. You can see in yellow. In green, you can find the main targets. And then in red, you will find the dedicated blockers. Van Dijk as the main target, that is usually the Van Dijk is their player with the highest number of shots from set pieces. Of course, if you think about him, okay, it's normal. But in a situation where the league is so competitive, everyone knows everyone, it's still a really good job to manage to have your best target to head the ball plenty of times because it's not granted due to the amount of man marking he needs to suffer every time, the amount of cover he needs to suffer every time. So props to him. So as you can see there, connecting with the framework before, we have block on the goalkeeper, block on the central zona that should be Collins, if I see him correctly. And then the targets coming. It's important to have multiple targets, of course, because if you only have one possibility, there's plenty of situation where it can go wrong. So it's important to have more. And then, of course, it's not stated, but they have a decoy runner going in front of the first zonal defender, that is Mbuemo. Another piece of the puzzle, thinking about having multiple situation covered. And then again, we move forward against City, different starting location depending on the opponent. So that's of course really important. You can see some similarities, like Salah always ready to attack the second post, Van Dijk as the main target going into this kind of area. And then you have, like I said, multiple options open. Trajectory train is what I like to call it. It's like following the expected line of the trajectory of the corner. So you just line up on the trajectory, and if the main target doesn't get it, you may get it with the second target, or you may get it with the third target on the same line. And then again, similar, you can see a lot of similarities. It's important for our analysis to find this kind of situation where they can always rely on, and they propose it a lot. Then, of course, it's important to check the exceptions too, like the flashy routines. For example, the one they did against Man City, that of course everyone knows. I consider it like a bit of a flashy routine that can be proposed again through the season, probably 2, 3 times if you're lucky, and if the conditions are right. But in general, it's important for the analysis to understand first their main corner, what they do usually, and then cover the exceptions. Again, you can see similar plays, two blockers on the two zonals, target coming from kind of the same angle as these different clips we've seen there. Okay, now going into the right corner, as you can relate from the left corner, there's plenty and plenty of dots, I would say, plenty of shots, as you can refer as the squares on the left, and a few goals. That's super important to note. So you can see there's less and less circles, less and less touches that are not leading to a shot. So that means in few words that from just this view you can understand they are more dangerous from the right corners than on the left corners. Of course, we went to dive more into the situation of why is that happening. From the left corner, it was more in swing, probably out of the comfort zone of some big players they have with set piece capacity and abilities. Right corners is more their ideal scenario where they have the same angle they always had in previous years. They attack the ball at the same in the same kind of way. Even the rotation of the neck is kind of the same, so they can relate a lot to their experience, and that's super important. And they managed to have a lot of shots. Of course, the XG is not super high in this kind of situation because the more you have outswingers, the less XG you have, but of course that's normal because you are getting away from the 6 yard box, you are getting far away from the keeper. But in general, they had an incredible amount of shots and yeah, really good.
I think yeah, that's an interesting point, Michele, there about the set play XG and how the type of delivery can play a large part in the data. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how companies like Huddle Stats Bomb, come up with even more innovative ways to look at set play data and how that sort of compares to more open play data. It can be quite different, really, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess from my understanding of the situation of companies and softwares, they're always on the lookout to understand more and more about the game. And of course, you can tell me better on this than I do, but I really like the work being done, especially from StatsBomb and different companies. They're always coming out with such innovative ideas and of course, the latest one was the ops, so the metric to understand the aerial abilities of players. That is not live yet, is on the assisted stats bomb, but it will be super important. I will be the first one probably to look at them during my weekly analysis, and of course, a lot of people will do the same because I really like it and I really like the innovation they provide. So, yeah, really good again.
Yeah,
And
great. And just on that one, I believe there are plans to sort of incorporate that hops data model um, specifically into set plays, for example, as well as on the new StatsBomb platform. I believe there's going to be a new sort of definition of set plays and a new model essentially. So yeah, some interesting things to come for sure.
yeah, sounds super interesting. So yeah, cannot wait to do that. And I believe everyone listening is kind of on the same advice. Um, Diving more into the situation there, right corners, this is something similar, but at the same time, not quite for the Champions League because you have less situations like we have seen on the left corner, but you can see plenty of shots, almost no touches that are not leading to shots. Um, and even position-wise of the shots, the situation is more closer to the 6 yard box in comparison to the Prem. So this is important to take note of what kind of players were playing such a competition, what kind of takers, what kind of runners, what kind of targets. And in the end, this one shows the adaptability to different competition that for clubs playing 2, 3, 4 competition per season, it's super important to have. I've seen plenty of clubs that are incredibly good on set pieces in one competition, not the same in different competition, completely different ideas depending on the competition because it's important to understand the context. I don't expect myself to attack, for example, Inter Milan the same way I would attack Crystal Palace. That's absolutely the normal for set plays, and it's something always to take into account. And those are a few references, but of course we have seen plenty of those before on the other side, just to understand what is their main corner. Van Dijk, Kwanzaa, and Szoboszlai in this case are targets. This time against Chelsea, that is not defending like incredibly well, you could argue, um, but still a good reference for the main corner. Nunez again, another possible target and runner. Salah always on the second post. Gakpo as a blocker on the number 23. And then you have the goal from Van Dijk. Of course, I'm never referring to the second ball players or the short option because it's not a matter of this presentation, but of course, in every analysis, it's super important to understand every role, even outside of the box, because especially in Midtjylland, I can relate that the majority of the goals and the chances we created through the season were from winning the second ball and playing the second phase, third phase, etc. Then, of course, it depends on when is the set piece finishing for you. It depends. For us, it was around having the center backs inside of the opponent box. And then when they leave, the set piece is done. But of course, for different clubs can be time, for example, 15 seconds, or if you stick in the final third, in the offensive third, with the ball is still okay. Sometimes they say till the moment the open play system is back, is still a set play. Then when the open play system is back, is not a set play anymore. So there's plenty of option, and this is why our world of analysis is beautiful, because there's no only one answer. Yeah, another view of the situation. Of course, as you can say, blockers on Cucurella and another zonal player. Van Dijk completely alone there. So Chelsea did not so well in this case. Defensive corners, like I said, there's not the same amount of time to spend on them, because they were incredibly good. So as you can see, even in the whole season on the Prem, they only got 20 shots against. I bet no one is so strong and still to do something like that, especially from the left corner. Of course, left corner from the player perspective, because when I speak with the players, it's important for them to relate on the pitch. So when I defend a corner, I have this corner that we are seeing now on my left. Of course, when I'm tagging is on the right. So just to make sure any possible questions around that. For the players, it's easier to relate. So left corner in that case, as you can see, the only few shots they got against are from the edge of the box, but the ones that are important for us are the ones in the front post and on the back post. As you can see in the middle, there is absolutely nothing, no touches, no shots, because of course it's the place where you can find Van Dijk and Konate usually. So it will be fairly difficult even to try to find some ideas around that. Of course, there can be plenty on paper, but then when you go in the pitch, it will be difficult to jump over them. So let's see few corners that led them to struggle a bit. So where would I go if I was, the next opponent of Liverpool? So zonal defenders as four, man marking with the circles, and then you have with the like adult circle, you have the short option and the penalty box cover for the edge of the box. Yeah, of course, what was the main idea? Going outside of the central zone, because we want to avoid Van Dijk and Konate as much as possible. If we go further, movement to open the space, blocking kind of the zonal defenders to allow the space to open, and then have a better chance to flick the ball and have a shot directly in the goal, because it's so close to the possible shots. And then even in the short option, you can see the main idea was to go away again from Van Dijk and Konate, even in short options, to have a closer and better delivery from the edge of the box, trying to find the second post where you have a positional advantage on the defenders that have a questionable body shape.
I think that's gives everyone a really nice insight into sort of, how perhaps those teams may have looked at some of the data before the game in terms of how strong Liverpool were in that central zone, and then really great to see a number of sort of different routines and variations, whether that's back post, front post, or short, about how different strategies to overcome Liverpool's strengths.
Absolutely. I like to see the videos first. I said that plenty of times in the past because I don't want to get too much bias from just watching the data first. But of course, I know that many can argue that we are in a place where we need to work quickly, where we have time-sensitive days, where we need to prepare everything in few days and then we play, and then another few days and then we play. So of course, there will be times where I see the data first and then structure something around that. At first, I want to see the videos because I like different approaches. I know, for example, Tottenham, everyone attacks their back post, but I've seen, if I remember correctly, Aston Villa attacking their front post. That is completely on the other way than data. So there's always possibilities to do things differently. Like I said, everyone look at each other, so it's a kind of a mind game in the end because of course Liverpool will know that people will never attack their central zone, and so they can focus more on different parts. So this is defending wise again. From the other side, not much to see. 6-yard box, really good coverage. Only one goal conceded, only 14 shots conceded. That is incredibly low number. And just a quick view on that. As you can see again, Ipswich trying to get away as much as possible with a block in front of Konate to make him believe that the ball can go there to cover this player. Chiesa dragged to the front post, block on the last zonal defender. Two runners coming in, defenders were not quite ready. And then again, like on the other side, you have Brentford looking at the same thing that Crystal Palace did on the other side. So it was kind of the same idea on the other side, and this means plenty of opposition analysis. On the Champions League, as you can see, nothing really happened. Plenty of shots from the outside, insanely good coverage of everything. Only 16 shots, but the majority from the outside. So only 5 shots in the inside of the box, 0 goals, nothing crazy. I want to go through indirect free kicks too a bit, same data as we've seen on the corners. This is where probably Liverpool struggle a bit more because the data, every single piece of data is below average. And if we make the comparison with the league, you can see that with Tottenham and Fulham, they were the worst ones in this particular area, with plenty of room for improvement. In the Champions League, the situation is a bit different because they were well above average in both situations, offensively and defensively, with Aston Villa, Inter Milan, Brest, and Barcelona. So again, you can see the incredible shift from a competition to another. In the Champions League, one of the best; in the Premier League, one of the worst. And we can see like few seconds on the main idea, and this is something probably in the set piece community we should talk more about because it's difficult to score goals on side free kicks. The next one that will be able to solve it will be like will have the crown of set pieces for this season for sure. And then you can see a lot of teams like Arsenal, Aston Villa that are starting from an position of offside, then coming back in, trying to block the line, while some other players trying to push, for example, the last of the line to get a better possibility to not fall in offside. You have seen probably plenty of those, and this is something that is incredibly good to see because it's an innovation, and at the same time is something so difficult in my opinion to defend. So there will need to be talks around that, how to defend this kind of situation properly. And then we will go more into it in a few seconds. This is their idea on offensive wise. And then we go defensive wise. This is what I was talking about. Coming from the offside, this is of course something everyone saw. Liverpool trying to do the offside trap, but the main target was actually on the back. But why is this happening? Why Arsenal decided to try to get on the back of them? Because of course you want to avoid the big guys that we talked before, Konate, Van Dijk sitting in the central zone, so you will not go there. Front post, you can see plenty of coverage. Second post, you have the smaller kind of players, so this is why probably more and more teams are looking to go there. Again, this is a matter of analysis. Plenty of blocks. Could have been a goal, of course. Aston Villa, again, plenty of blocks. Men's falling, almost there. And then like I'll need a snap on what I like to see on individual analysis of the player and their involvement. So Van Dijk, 22 shots, 3 goals, plenty of involvements. So just with this snap, you can see, okay, what are the main targets they have, the main threats they have, what do I need to look for in them to defend correctly. So you have like not many metrics, but the ones that makes you understand the situation super quickly. At the same time, then you have like Konate and Van Dijk with the most shots, and then you dive more into them saying, okay, where is Van Dijk taking the shots from? And then you can find little patterns around these movements where he likes to go, because usually players are more used to go on the same piece of on the pitch, especially on set plays. They're used to do kind of the same things. So by seeing that on Van Dijk and Konate, you can probably understand better if they are stronger on the right side, on the left side, where Konate will be. That is probably even more clear than Van Dijk. So yeah, and this is the impact of the set piece coach that I sometimes show, because it's important to understand that we have a crossover with the open play. It takes time, like the open play is not immediate. Of course, you can have some positive progress immediately, like it happened with Arsenal, for example, when they appointed Nicolas Jover, they got higher number the first season. With Austin McPhee was different, incredibly low numbers on the first season, but then it started to skyrocket because, of course, if you work in a good way, you will get rewarded in the long run. And that's why you need to stick with the process, trust the process, and it's important to have a lot of communication and buy-in with everyone. On the right, you will find Keith Andrews with Brentford. Of course, the job was incredibly difficult because Brentford is always one of the top clubs. At the moment, it's falling a little bit short than last season, where they had Cueva, but of course, it's a matter of process, like I said. Aaron Briggs from Liverpool, again, incredible difficult job coming from the Jurgen Klopp era. But again, like you can see on Austin McPhee and different coaches that maybe are not even in this chart that did the same path. It's a matter of developing. So okay, this is his starting point, and then you will move forward for sure in a better way in the future.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to look at that data, and I think, as you've alluded to, Michele, I think it's easy to just attribute one team's set play data to a set play coach. That would be the easy thing to do, but in reality, there's so many other factors that go into it, isn't it? Even though I'm sure all of the guys you can see on the screen there do some fantastic work, there's so much other factors that play into it, whether it's the manager, whether it's the players, all sorts of different things. But yeah, really, really fascinating to have a look at that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the same as, okay, you have a manager and then you talk about the points per game, but then you don't know all the troubles they have, like club-wise, all the troubles the owner have, all the problems in communications, all the problems with I don't know, different departments. It's kind of the same, and of course, it's important for the sake of the analysis, like we said, to always take this and then go deeper and deeper into the analysis. And then, yeah, this is me. Just a brief overview, but of course, the introduction from Billy was even better.
That's very kind. But yeah, look, Michele, I'd just like to take this opportunity just to thank you for all the, the huge amount of effort and detail you've gone into in this presentation. I think it's been fascinating to really just look at Liverpool set plays in isolation rather than all the open play things that often get spoken about. And I think that sort of contrast between their attacking set plays and their defending set plays has been really interesting. And I think as we look towards next season, I'm sure everyone will be keeping an eye on how Liverpool adapt things going into the new season, particularly as we, in terms of attacking set plays with Trent no longer being there and potentially Robertson playing not so much, and maybe another centre forward coming in. I think it's going to be interesting to see how things develop next year. But look, I know you've been great in terms of this, reaching out to people and connecting with people recently. So I think I'm right in saying, Michele, if anyone has any questions or wants to follow up with yourself, then please do just reach out to Michele on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always important to share ideas and exchange experiences. So thanks a lot to you, Billy. It's always a pleasure, especially for creative set plays that I always look for almost every day. So I'm always there, like as the first fan. So it's always a pleasure. Thanks you for having me, and thanks to everyone watching.
Thank you again, Michele. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye bye.